As we get further into deer season, I've seen a lot of people on social media have a lot of success out deer season. And I've heard some stories of people having a hard time out there deer hunting. I unfortunately haven't been able to get out quite yet. But I wanted to take a moment as we're in the heart of it to do a top 10 things you definitely should not do when you're deer hunting, or a top 10 list of the biggest mistakes people make when they're deer hunting. I believe this will help. There's a lot of mistakes we can make when it comes to deer hunting. I just believe these are the top 10. Number one, not practicing enough. Now, I put that as number one primarily because practicing does several things. Number one, it shores up your sights, or it shores up your scope. Whatever that may be, it also shores up your abilities and your concept of distance and range and windage. And these are all very important things, and oftentimes many people will break out their firearms for deer season right before deer season. Now, I actually had a conversation with a good friend of mine just today who was out hunting with a new rifle, and unfortunately his first shot at the deer that was 60 yards away, he had missed, but he said that was his first shot with that rifle. Number two, clothing choice. Now I'm going to talk a lot about clothing choice. And I'm going to kind of add in here scent control as well. Obviously, scent control is a big deal, but clothing choice is a big deal. I have a great coat that I went hunting with one time, but it was kind of a thicker material, so it made a little bit of a noise when I moved. So I recommend something very, very soft that is not going to make sounds when you move around. But also when it comes to scent control on your clothes, you obviously don't want to run these clothes through the washer. In hindsight, you don't want them reeking like a human. So what I recommend you do with your clothes is you put them outside before deer season, and you let them just sit outside. Rain, shines, snow, whatever, ice, let them just let the elements take over those clothes. And then when they're dry, bring them in, put them in a drawer. They're ready for deer season. Number three, access route planning. A lot of people don't plan their access routes. Now, this is a big problem because deer take the path of least resistance just like we do. So if you're taking the path of least resistance to get to your stand, you're junking up the path of deer. You're essentially you're putting your scent all over that trail, which means they're going to avoid that trail. Deer are always going to take the path of least resistance, so plan your access routes to your stand that has nothing to do with the deer trails. Number four, forgetting equipment. Now, this is a big deal because oftentimes when you're out, you don't want to forget equipment. For me, my deer hunting space is a 3-hour drive. One time, I was driving down with a friend, and we get about 2 hours down the road, and I mentioned that I'd forgotten ammunition. Now, he said, oh, that's fine, we'll stop at Walmart. And I said, well, it's 7.5 by 55 Swiss. They're not going to have it at Walmart. Now, luckily, I did have my bow with me, so I did a little bow hunting, but, you know, that's just that little thing, like forgetting your ammo, forgetting your orange hat or your vest, or just there's so much you can forget. Well before you leave for deer hunting, just plan your list of what you need to bring and try not to forget anything. Number five, stick to your stand. Now, kind of what I mean by this is oftentimes people will set up a deer stand, they'll do a lot of scouting, and then they'll get in their deer stand, and after about an hour or so, they start to get impatient and they get up and leave. And all that's doing is that's ruining everything that you've built up until that point. Stay patient, stay in your stand. Now, the other thing I'll say on staying in your stand is even when you get a deer, stay in your stand. I'm going to share a funny story with you. I used to work with a guy, and he showed me photos of this, but he shot a deer from his stand, and then he waited. He stayed in his stand because he can hear other deer. A bigger buck walks up and starts smelling that dead deer, and he shot that deer, and he literally fell on top of him, and then he stayed in his stand. And then a third deer walked up, and again, I saw photos of this, so he was literally getting a pile of deer naturally, and he did not take the shot on the third deer because he only had 2 tags, but he literally had a pile of deer sitting there because he stuck to his stands. Number 6. Clear your shooting lanes. You know, in Missouri, it's often really thick, and oftentimes you're not hunting across a cornfield that's been recently plowed. Like oftentimes you're hunting in the thick, and if you are, clear your lanes, clear some shooting lanes. Even if your shot hits a tiny little stick, it's going to change the trajectory of it dramatically. Change or clear your lanes. Make sure you clear some shooting lanes. When you're in your stand, clear some lanes. Number 7, pay attention to the hunting conditions. You know, there's certain conditions that deer are going to be out moving around. There's certain conditions where they kind of batten down the hatches and stay put. Make sure you're looking at weather appropriately, because oftentimes people say, well, I'm going to hunt on Saturday, and rain, shine, whatever, that's their day of hunting. Take your time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Find the right weather conditions. Don't go in the wrong conditions. You're just wasting your time. Number 8, move around during the day. Hunt the day. You know, it's a little contradictory to sticking to your stands, but there's a point where the deer stop moving during the day. That's when you want to get down and move around. And a lot of people, they don't hunt the day. They'll hunt the morning, and then they'll walk away, and they'll come back and they'll hunt the evening. Move around during the day. I have personally stirred up deer. Now, I've never successfully shot a deer stirring them up, but I have stumbled across them multiple times. And I've heard many reports of other people that nothing came to their stands, and finally in the middle of the day when they get out and they start walking around, that's when they start stirring up those deer. So hunt the day, get out, move around during the day, but cherish that stand time appropriately as well. Again, those are two contradictory to each other. But once that stand time is up, then get up and move around. Number 9, call the deer. Learn some deer calls. Buy some deer calling equipment. Call the deer. Rattle for them. Shake some antlers on some trees. Start calling those deer in. They will respond. Deer are very social creatures, especially when it comes to mating season. They're going to pay attention when they hear deer making noises. They're going to go investigate. So make sure you're taking advantage of deer calls and rattling. A lot of people go out and hunt. They just simply don't do that. You're more likely to bring it in when you're calling them in. And finally, number 10, take care of yourself. Remember, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon when it comes to deer hunting. Take care of yourself. Make sure you have plenty of food and water. Make sure you're warm. Make sure you're not soaking wet. Make sure you're able to access restrooms. Make sure you're taking care of yourself, and that's psychologically as well. Don't sit there and be like, when you start seeing your friends, bucks, start posting on Facebook, don't panic. Again, you have multiple days to hunt. Take care of yourself. Bring a book. Make it entertaining in some kind of way. Make it an enjoyable thing, not a stressful, miserable thing. And the best way to really enjoy hunting is to take care of yourself. So there you go. There's my top 10 list on the biggest mistakes that deer hunters are making. I'm sure there's all sorts of others. Put them in the comments below. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. Feel called to support this channel through Patreon. That link is also below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests, so never hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.